Welcome to the InStory Show Summer Edition on how empaths do it, how to turn your sensitivities into your strengths. And today I'm thrilled to welcome Kay Rettich. Hi, Kay.
Hi.
All right, before we dive in, I'm just going to read a little bit about Kay. So Kay Rettich loves to collage for personal growth and discovery. She first discovered collaging as an alternative to journaling back when she was struggling with emotional issues. Although Kay has always loved writing, her dispirited thinking often caused her to write herself into a corner with no healthy escape. With collaging, she learned how to safely express her thoughts and feelings with images. Then, using a technique she learned from Soul Collage, she asks her collage to give her a key that she could use to safely move out of despair towards peace. And now Kay enjoys using her style key collage to show others how to unlock the riddles that will help them discover new, often surprising solutions and directions. So I love that, Kay. And I love the whole process of how you became the creator of Key Collage. So, all right, what I want to do is I just want to introduce Kay a little bit more, because Kay is a member of the InStory Way year-long group and is now part of our leadership team. And it is where she developed her whole vision of Key Collage. And so what's kind of cool is recently I shared some information about empaths and being a highly sensitive person. And this launched Kay and a lot of other people into a whole new direction of thinking. And so Kay, tell a little bit of the story of how you have encountered and engaged with this whole concept of being an empath, a highly sensitive person, and where that's led you.
Okay. Well, you posted a link to a TED Talk about highly sensitive people last December, and I'd never heard of that term before. But when she was reading all of the characteristics of highly sensitive people, or HSPs, I thought, she's talking about me. And I had no idea that there were other people who had, you know, when you have this odd set of characteristics, you just assume that's normal, that's who you are, and you don't think it's a thing. And so all of my life, I had been making decisions based on being highly sensitive, although I didn't know that's why I was making those decisions. For example, when I was a little girl, and everybody asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? I figured I could choose between nurse or teacher. And everyone knew I would not be a nurse, because anytime anybody got sick, I also got sick. And thank goodness my little sister was a genius at taking care of sick people, so I didn't have to do it. And now she's a microbiologist, and I was a teacher. And I looked back then after watching that TED Talk, and I thought, how many decisions have I made during my life because I was a highly sensitive person and had no idea that's why I was making those decisions.
Right, and I think it's even more than that, because then I shared Judith Orloff's book on I think it's called the Empath Survival Guide, and didn't that launch another set of thinking?
I was just getting used to the idea that all of these strange things about my personality were because I was highly sensitive. And then Devorah blows my mind again by posting a book by Judith's book. And I'm thinking, am I an empath too? I'm not even gotten used to being highly sensitive. And now I'm thinking, I'm an empath? And you know, I'm not the kind of person that likes to put labels on myself, but it does give me handy words to Google to find out, well, if I was an empath, how would that be affecting me? And how could I change what I'm doing to work with it instead of running from it? Because most of my life, I was shut down. I was too sensitive. And anybody who's been told they're too sensitive doesn't want to stay that way. And so I learned how to dissociate at a very young age and spent most of my life dissociated. And it wasn't until relatively recently that I even started considering the idea that my head and my body were connected, and they weren't two separate parts of me, they were just me. And I started working with a genius at helping me connect and understand what feelings feel like, because until then my feelings were all intellectual. Okay, when this particular thing happens, most people feel happy, therefore I say I feel happy, although I really felt very little. And it all came to a head then when I ended up being depressed for a very long time. Um, when you can't feel anything at all, really the only thing that's left is depression. And so I spent a lot of years working through how to stop dissociating, how to start feeling again. And I just think if I had understood what it means to be highly sensitive and that there are ways of handling it besides dissociating from it, I think my life could have been a little different than how it is. Not that I don't love my life, but decisions I made along the way would have been different had I known better.
Well, and I think that's the whole point of us talking about all this now, because I agree, like now you have an amazing life and you do amazing work. And, you know, I often say our struggles do become our wisdom, but that wisdom we can pass on so the people behind us don't have to have necessarily the same struggles.
Right.
Because it is something that, you know, when you listen to some of the other speakers who've studied being a highly sensitive person, like in the research now, it's just a trait, and 20% of the population, male and female, have it. It's just another kind of normal.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm sure that's not how you felt, and you are not alone in having depression. I may be almost, I don't know if it's every single person I've interviewed so far who is an empath, highly sensitive person, and it was not recognized, became depressed because of shutting it down.
Right. Exactly.
You know, so how do you think you're now beginning to turn, you know, part of the theme of this whole series is to become aware of the old stories and what happened. And then how do we turn these sensitivities now into our strengths, which now you're seeing happening, I think.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe you can say a little bit about that.
Well, I developed this process called key collage. Is that what you want me to
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
talk about?
Yeah.
And when I, like Devorah said in the beginning during my introduction, I had to stop journaling because it didn't help. It made me worse. And doing collaging helped. And I think I'm probably not the only person for whom journaling doesn't help when they're depressed. And so I developed a process from what I learned about myself and my healing and my growth with collage, and I can use this process now to help other people discover healthier answers inside of themselves. Because we all have the answers inside. The answers are all there. It's just that our heads and our logic and our need to analyze things get in the way and stop us from connecting with our heart or our soul, where the answers really are.
100%. But I want to go back a little bit, because I think that there's still some benefit in talking a little bit about what your life was like when you didn't know that you were an empath. Like, what happened? Because I think it's important, the stories that we share about what it was like, and then the reframe, because I think that was a big thing. Like, I remember you told me you read this book like all night, like it reframed, and I want to try to pull that out a little more of the way you thought it was, and then the way it seems now.
Okay. When I was in my middle 30s, I was numb. I had the perfect marriage, the perfect number of children, my dream house, my dream job. I had absolutely everything I ever wanted, and I felt nothing.
Wow.
And that led to a depression, during which time I lost almost everything I had because I just disappeared from the world and into myself. And it was a long 10-year process before I could start coming out the other side of it and actually making a decision that I've spent enough of my life being controlled by this depression, and now I want to do things differently. And I've met some gifted healers during my time that have helped me not only act as if I'm not depressed, but actually start feeling as if I'm not depressed. And it's a long, hard process. If I weren't so tenacious, I certainly wouldn't have made it, at least not as far as I've made it now. And understanding how shutting down is a survival mechanism for so many people. I just want to help people understand that there are other choices to shutting down, and there are other safe choices to shutting down. And I use my key collage process to help people with that. And when I do the process, I show them a deck of cards that I made over the course of 10 or 20 years that all reflect how I feel during both positive and less positive times in my life as I was going through this process of recovering. This process helped me in a way that nothing else did, and that's why I like offering that process to other people, because it is a very deep way of finding those answers in a way that you can trust it. Because when other people give you answers or solutions, they're not yours. And they don't necessarily resonate with you the way your own answers will.
Well, and I think it's also interesting because there's something about the, because I love image and metaphor so much. And so I think it's interesting, and maybe we can talk about this a little bit about why collage worked when journaling alone didn't.
Because when I was journaling, I was in the logical, analytical part of my brain. And as anybody knows who's ever been depressed, your logic is not always that spot on. Your thinking is all twisted. And you come to very logical conclusions, like the world would be better off without me, that don't make sense if you're not depressed, but make so much sense when you are. Collaging, though, I'm in the other part of my brain where there is no logic. There's only pictures. And I can take pictures and put them down and look at the pictures, and they're going to tell me things in a way that's not necessarily logical. I have never had a collage that told me the world would be better off without me the way my brain did.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why I really like working with images, because that's literally what saved my life.
Wow. What's so great, Kay and I work together in lots of interesting ways. And what I love is that so much of the InStory work is about going into that other part of the brain, into the subconscious, and pulling out images. But until Kay and I started to work together, we didn't put them into collages. We just talked about them. And so I think but this whole discussion of the power of image and metaphor is extremely important. And I don't think I've heard anyone articulate it quite as clearly around the issue of depression. And so let's see if we can go even a little more deeply into that, because I would love to really, we're going to have a Facebook group. So people are going to be able to get in the Facebook group. They're going to be able to reach out to you, reach out to me. But I think that this is a really powerful realm, is this area of getting out of that thinking that doesn't work. And maybe you can give us a couple of examples, Kay, of how you do collage. And I know people are going to get that when they get your free gift, but maybe you can talk a little bit about how it works for you.
So when I did collaging back when I was younger, like high school, college, it was very popular back then. I would look for pictures and look for words and put together an idea that was from my brain. It was, this is what I want to be when I grow up. And it's a picture of a college graduate or a teacher or whatever. But they were all very concrete and very much from my brain. When I am looking for images now, though, I get myself into a place where I'm just really relaxed and kind of like a meditative place. And I start looking for pictures. And when I see a picture that makes me stop and look, I just rip it out of the magazine without stopping to think about it, without analyzing, why do I like this picture? I don't care. It just caught my attention, so I rip it out. And when I get finished and I have a pile of pictures, then I start cutting them out and putting together, making a collage. And often the collage gives me answers that I had no idea I was looking for when I started. But when I'm looking through the magazines, if I find myself reading the headlines or thinking, oh, I got to read this article, this is really interesting, then I know I'm back in my head and I'm not using my heart anymore. So, you know, I might rip that article out and save it for later, but then I take a couple deep breaths and I go back into the feeling part of my heart so I can get the kinds of pictures that I'm looking for.
You know, and I think this is a very important direction for people who are highly sensitive and empathic, because the part of it is the way we get information is different. And part of the whole theme of this is how do we take that and make it a strength, not a liability. So why was it such a liability for you? Like, why did you have to shut it all down?
I was too overwhelmed. I couldn't function.
What do you mean? Because why?
There's so much stuff coming in. And really, I'm guessing because I shut this down before I really remember. Mm-hmm. I've been shut down for as long as I can remember. So I don't really know why I shut it down. But I know there were some things that happened to me that shouldn't have happened to me that would have been totally overwhelming for a 2 or 3 year old girl. Mm-hmm. And my only way to survive that was to shut down, dissociate. And once I learned how to dissociate, I didn't have to feel any of that pain anymore. And it just became a habit.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's so important that we're talking about this because we didn't know any better. Our parents didn't know any better, honestly, you know, and as there's more research out and we're able to actually name things, you become able to choose differently, you know, and for parents who have young children who are going through this, they are now going to get the kind of support they need to go, oh, you know what? Maybe my child is an empath or is highly sensitive, and maybe they need to do these tools, right? That are different, right? And so my hunch is, you, like many of us, what are some of the, I won't even say them, what are some of the things you now do to feel good and healthy and take care of yourself?
Well, collaging is one of the things. That's the main thing I do. It really helps me. Devorah, you also have a process that we do during each one of our classes called going into the realm of spiritual imagination. And I love going into that place. It's a completely safe place for me. When I was doing guided meditations when I was depressed, the places that I would go to were okay for a while, and then some bad thing got in and it totally ruined it and I couldn't do it anymore. But in the land of spiritual imagination, for some reason, nothing bad can get in there. And so I can let my imagination run wild. I have the craziest things happen to me there. And It's kind of like, it reminds me of when I was a little girl and I could just let my imagination go. I wrote crazy stories when I was a little girl, and it's kind of like having that back again. And I really like it. And then whatever image or person or guide or angel that I meet in the land of spiritual imagination has a special message just for me that I can use then to help me with whatever it is that I'm going through at that point.
Well, it makes me so happy to hear you say that, and for everybody listening to take that in. It's so much a part of my vision, and my mission is to give everybody access to that realm, because then what happens is we become able to bring that more of our soul calling out in the world. And I think it's being asked of us. I mean, you probably have that feeling too, Kay, don't you? That the times are different, that there's more of an opening.
And you can't bring your soul's calling out into the world if you don't know what it is.
Right.
There have to be ways to figure it out. And you can't ask your brain, tell me what my soul's purpose is, because the brain doesn't know. It's in your heart, it's in your soul. And that's why these processes work, because your brain is, off somewhere, and you're in the core essence of yourself where your real answers are. And once you have access to that, then the magic can start.
Right. And what's happening now is that as each of us are becoming stronger at bringing this out rather than shutting it down, it then is opening and opening and opening the way. So that's why I have this feeling that it's like in this higher sense, this is being asked of us. And like all of a sudden, there's a lot of other series on empaths and highly sensitive. And I was like, we need to talk about this. And we need to talk about it more and more and more. And then as they become our strength, we develop new tools. And then we can pass them on to the next person, because I do feel like a lot of us are having this feeling that this thing I put on hold, this soul calling that I put on hold, is now a possibility to bring it forward. I know I know you've really felt that, and you've also felt that sense of safety to share your stories, I think, haven't you?
InStory is the group. It's a group of women who stay in the group for a year, and everybody starts the group when they're ready to start. So it's not like introduction, middle, and graduate. Everybody goes through the process at their own pace. So now I've been in there longer than most of the people, and I can help the people who are newer find their way. Mostly I do that I hope, by giving an example of how you can be vulnerable and how you can feel safe in the group. It's the first time I've been in a group where I felt completely safe revealing whatever it is that comes up for me. This is not something that's normally found in my world. So.
Right. And I think that's true for a lot of us. When I talk to women, they'll say, well, I can't really talk about this in my family. They don't really get it. Or at my job, they don't really get it. And now with the advent of the internet, it's given us access to each other in a way we've never had before. And we're creating these new kind of communities that have this tremendous safety, depth, creativity. I'm always telling everybody we're deep and a little wacky. And I think that that's something we weren't able to show, most of us, in our younger years, in our previous work we did in the world. But there's also this integration. So maybe you can talk a little bit, Kay, about how you're feeling an integration of different skills that you have, and then that'll probably lead you to telling us a little bit about your free gift and all that, because it's been fun to see.
Well, part of the things I'm thinking about over the next few years is, what am I going to do when I retire? And I enjoy my job. I like going to work every day. I really like the people I work with, but I'm not going to be doing it forever. Eventually, I'm going to be retiring, and I'm not going to be one of those people who retires and then says, well, now what do I do? So I'm going to know what I'm going to do before I start retiring. And that's what Key Collage is for me. And I am combining the skills that I learned from when I was a teacher, the skills that I learned as a writer and as a technical writer, the skills I've learned developing training software and combining them all together into this neat little fun thing called Key Collage.
Right. Well, you know, I'm such a big fan of integrating all of who we are. And I'm always telling people, you know, we're a little invisible to ourselves. We recently had a project in InStory where everybody wrote in everything they did. And Kay kind of blew me away a while back when she made this extraordinary video, which you're going to get access to, on how to make collages. And I said, Kay, how do you know how to do that? And she just never told me this skill. And that's true for a lot of you who are watching. You probably have a lot of skills and abilities that as you vision something new, you think you have to throw them away, but you don't. There's this process of integration that is so interesting and creative, and that you become able to use your old skills in a new way. All right. So isn't that kind of what's happened with you?
Right. So, you know, I liked teaching well enough when I was teaching, but it wasn't that crazy about the kids, really. And once I had my own kids, there was no way I was going to be spending time with other people's kids in addition to my own. And so I became a technical writer. So I'm teaching people, but there's no kids. They, you know, the people that I teach are watching training videos or reading the manuals that I write. And so that's how I can incorporate the teaching experience with what I do now. And now the skills that I've learned about how to survive and recover from depression, I'm using to help other people do the same.
Super important. So important. I mean, I'm very, very excited about the women who are sharing their honest stories. There are other women about coming out of depression so that we can help any of you who are struggling with that. So, all right, tell them about what's your free gift, how they'll be able to use it, because it will really help you guys.
I want to teach all of you how to use collage to help yourself the way it's helped me. And so the way it will work is, you come up with a question that you want an answer to, and it can be anything. It can be, what do I need to know to make my career more enjoyable? Or what do I need to know about a relationship or finances? Or it can even just be, what can I do right now that will make the rest of my day go better? You write your question down, you'll go to my website and you watch the video, how to create key collages, the key collage way, and it describes the process that we talked about briefly here, about picking your pictures from your heart and making your collage. And when your collage is finished, you'll have a set of questions to answer. And when you get finished, the answers to my questions and the collage that you made will work together to answer the question that you started off with in the beginning. And if you have any trouble figuring out how to interpret your collage or any of your answers, you can schedule a free 30-minute session with me and I'll help you. I'll help you figure it out because you know the answer.
Right. And Kay, I've had Kay sessions and they're wonderful, and it's super interesting. And it's an interesting combination too of guided imagery that you do often with people and answers to the collage, and how that inner imagery with the visual imagery is combined. And so I encourage everybody, get Kay's free gift. And if you have time and you make something, you can post it. The summit, we're going to have a Facebook group, so you're welcome to share that, be brave and share that with us. So Kay, before we just finish off, maybe you can just share a couple of last thoughts, a little bit of last inspiration for folks.
Well, for me, learning that I was HSP and maybe empath, doesn't matter, but I know I'm HSP, and it helped me reframe everything I do. And I'm encouraging you to learn what there is to know about HSPs and empaths, because it will help you rearrange the way you think about things and the way you approach your life in a way that might be more functional and easier for you.
Right. And that's why like the kind of enticing title of how empaths do it is part of what you have just answered. Like one of the ways that empaths do it and HSPs is by actually turning those sensitivities into strengths, into skills and talents, and employing them to enrich your life. So now, okay, you're not shut down. In fact, it's the opposite. Now you have access to this very inspiring and creative realm that can help the next person. And I think that's the powerful thing that's happening now, and that you're such a beautiful example of that. And and our hope obviously for all of you is that it will help you to really turn these sensitivities into your strengths. So thank you, Kay.
Thank you, Devorah.
And everybody, grab her free gift, share how you're doing in the Facebook group. And as I always say in parting, remember to go out in the world, share your story, live your purpose, and be a blessing. Bye, folks.